Welcome back to ICS 200 Lesson 3. In this lesson, we'll learn about how authority is assigned during an incident and how incident objectives guide the response. This is important for any responder, especially if you are the first one on scene or if you're supporting a larger operation. You'll also see why preparedness plans and agreements help you hit the ground running in high-stress situations. This is ICS 200, Lesson 3, Delegation of Authority and Management by Objectives. Let's get into it. By the end of this lesson, you should be able to explain what delegation of authority is and when it's needed. Understand an incident commander's scope of power, define what management by objectives means, and recognize why emergency plans and agreements really matter. Authority is the legal right to act on behalf of a department or agency. For example, the fire chief or EMS director has the legal power to assign responders and resources to an incident and continue to do so throughout the incident. If someone else, like mutual aid team or state official, needs to take command, they must be delegated to that authority. That means the person in charge gives them permission to act in that role. So, first discussion is here. Think about your own agency or area. Who is legally in charge? Just as it is. And then, who is legally in charge when something goes wrong? Is it your fire chief, your EMS director, your emergency manager? Knowing who has the final say before an incident happens helps you avoid confusion when the pressure's really on. An incident commander's authority comes from two places. First, existing laws or policies like a fire chief who's responding to a house fire. These policies are already in place. But you could also have a formal delegation of authority. Well, if someone from an outside agency needs to step in, that's how it happens, a formal delegation of authority. This defines what they can and can't do, what resources they can use, and what decisions they're allowed to make, all good things. A delegation of authority grants specific powers to act during the incident. It comes from a higher official, usually like a mayor or agency director, and it can be verbal or written. These aren't things that are usually disputed, though written is certainly preferred. It does not remove responsibility from the person who granted it. So in other words, you can delegate authority, but you're still accountable for the outcome. So don't just delegate it to somebody you know already isn't qualified to have that authority or isn't going to provide an acceptable outcome. Most small or routine incidents don't really need formal delegation. Sure, but we need to know this stuff. If your EMS captain already has the legal authority to manage this traffic collision, they just do it. That's just how it works. That's why they have the position. What's the point of having a job if every single time, 100% of the time, you can just delegate that to somebody else? Delegation comes into play when an incident gets bigger or crosses jurisdictions or evolves into something that's more than just that original person can handle. Or maybe it just prolongs for a long period of time where that person actually just does need to delegate so that they can receive some rest so that the incident can continue to get the attention that it needs. A delegation is needed when the incident is outside of the incident commander's usual area, or the incident is too complex for normal procedures, or law or agency policy requires it. Think about a multi-county wildfire that's continuing to spread, right? Or a federal disaster response. You want the person in charge to have clear legal authority to act and we remember that we're all humans, and so there is an expiration on when we no longer are giving our peak effort. So let's say you're responding to a major incident that crosses into another county. So think about this question. When would your agency need formal delegation of authority to take command of that incident? Think about how that might apply to your EMS system or fire district or however you split it where you are. And pause the video here if you need a second. Write in the comments if you'd like to discuss with other people, but give yourself a second here nonetheless to think about it. When would your agency need formal delegation of authority to take command? A good delegation of authority includes legal and financial limits, what needs to be reported, plans for communication and public information, political or cultural concerns, and what the incident commander is expected to achieve. This helps ensure that everyone is on the same page and reduces confusion later, hopefully. So here's another reflective question. How would you evaluate if leadership did a good job managing an incident? Ask yourself, did they follow the plan? Did people know what to do? Were safety and communication handled well? So let's apply this to a real case. Think about a high-profile event. We'll talk about this one, Beltway sniper case. And think about how incident managers, could keep agency executives informed and involved without creating too much confusion. This activity is to identify and reinforce ways that the incident management personnel can keep their agency executives involved and informed. Like I said, it should take about 10 to 15 minutes and we'll work in a team. Really here you want to identify some steps that you would take to keep the agency executives involved. Plain and simple. Here's the case study. The Beltway sniper case was one of the most infamous crimes in recent law enforcement, instilling fear in thousands of people. According to the after-action report, communication was clearly the most compelling concern in the sniper case. Investigators of this kind succeeded or failed based on the executive's ability to effectively manage and communicate information in a timely manner. Incident commanders must balance the incident needs with the obligations of local executives to be responsive to their citizens. In the words of one police chief, you cannot expect leaders to stop leading. Pause the video here and list a couple strategies or share the ideas in the comments. And when you're done, we'll continue. Once authority is established, the incident commander, or IC, as we've established, is responsible for setting incident goals, choosing strategies, building the ICS structure to support the response. The person must understand their limits, the mission, and how to protect life, property, and the environment. All of these good and basic things. ICS is all about management by objectives. And this is going to be an important part of this presentation, but much more as well. What does management by objectives mean? This means setting clear goals, creating plans and tasks to meet those goals, and measuring whether it's actually working. As an EMT or firefighter, you may be part of carrying out those objectives, but it's helpful to know where they come from. So, establish objectives. Develop and issue the assignments, plans, procedures. Establish measurable objectives for various function activities and direct the efforts to attain these goals. Documentation is the icing on the cake. This is management by objectives. There's a 6-step process for setting and acting on these objectives. First, understand policy and direction. Assess the situation. Set objectives. Pick strategies. Assign tasks or tactics, whatever you call them, and follow up and adjust as needed. The IC handles this process, but knowing the steps helps you understand how your work fits into the big picture. When you're first on scene, scene size up is key. This means, first, what happened? Are people hurt? How many? Is the hazard still ongoing? And what are the priorities? Even if you're quote unquote just the medic, your report helps the incident commander set the first objectives. Remember that. Don't get complacent just because you're not, high enough in an incident, but also don't do that in your everyday life and career anyways. Lead by example, strive for greatness, the good things will follow. Communicating effectively helps the people who are leading understand what you're facing and better direct you. ICS allows or always follows the same big picture priorities. Life safety being first and foremost, incident stabilization being right after that, and then preservation of property being just after that. You don't wait to finish one before starting two. It doesn't quite work that way, but life safety always comes first and always is the priority. As an EMT, that makes a lot of sense. You're directly tied to priority number one, saving lives. But the rest are here so you understand the big picture. Objectives should be SMART in general, but also SMART. S is for specific, M is for measurable, A is for attainable, R is for realistic, T is for time sensitive. So let's have an example. Establish a controlled perimeter around the incident within 45 minutes or by 6 p.m. How do we get things done? How do we direct our incident objectives? Do we just go around and tell people, get things under control and hope that that works and hope that they understand what we're trying to achieve? Or do we assign somebody the objective of establishing a triage area within 20 minutes of arrival? I think, the second one's a little bit more clear and certainly sets you and your team and everybody else and the patients, sets them up better for success. So now it's your turn. Here's a scenario. Sudden windstorm knocks out some power lines, trapped divers, causes gridlock. We'll do this in a group. It'll take about 20 minutes. And we're trying to understand what objectives would you set personally. If you're playing along at home, pause the video after the scenario and throw your ideas in the comments if you please. Here's the scenario. At noon, a sudden, severe windstorm strikes the city, uprooting trees and trapping several commuters in their vehicles. Power is out for half the city. Traffic is gridlocked. The storm has passed as quickly as it began. Write 2 to 3 SMART objectives before continuing or drop them in the comments. When you're ready, we'll continue. Objectives, strategies, and tactics. Let's break this down. Incident objectives, strategies, and tactics are the fundamental pieces of a successful incident response. Incident objectives state what will be accomplished. Strategies establish the general plan or direction for accomplishing the incident objectives, and tactics specify how the strategies will be executed. Objectives are the what needs to happen. Strategies are the how you plan to do it, and tactics are the steps your team will take. Let's make an example. Let's say the objective is stopping hazardous materials from entering the river. The strategy we'll use is to set up some barriers, and the tactic is placing absorbent mats and booms at runoff points to collect the furthering of this problem. I think something like that makes a lot of sense. Objective, strategy, tactic. So if our objective is to stop the spread of hazardous materials from a tractor-trailer incident spill into the river by 1800 today, we're going to employ these barriers like we talked about, and the tactic is using the absorbent material to construct a barrier downhill side of the accident scene before the creek. The incident commander is responsible for establishing these goals and selecting the strategies. Although many may be presented to them, the operations section, if it's established, would be responsible for determining the appropriate tactic for that incident. Hopefully that helps kind of paint the picture of this sort of thing. So now on to the incident action plan. The incident action plan covers an operational period and includes a couple key things. First, what must be done? Next, who is responsible for that? How will information be communicated? And what should be done if somebody is injured or if the whole incident continues to get worse? The operational period is the period of time scheduled for execution of a given set of tactical actions as specified by the IAP, and all of that exists on a nice concise document that follows a certain form, kind of like your college papers do. They want them in a certain format so that when somebody goes to pick them up, they know exactly whose paper this is, when it was written, what the topic is, what course it pertains to, etc., etc. So there exists an operational period planning cycle, sometimes referred to as Planning P. The incident action plan is completed each operational period, utilizing the progression of meetings and briefings and discussions in the operational period planning cycle, or Planning P. The Planning P is a graphical representation of the sequence and relationships of the meetings, work periods, and briefings that comprise this whole operational planning cycle. It is kind of a lot to think about right now, but just look at the diagram on the right here and you will see what we're talking about. Operational planning is cyclical and ongoing. You have the initial response, and after the initial response, where you get these little things on the bottom: incident, notification, initial response, agency administrator, whatever else, you progress into this constant cycle so that your IAP and other documents, other plans are constantly evolving. So let's try a discussion question. Given this objective and strategy, what tactic would you use if heavy rains are threatening to cause a dam break in your area? The objective would be to decrease the probability of flooding by reducing the reservoir level to 35 feet by 800 tomorrow. The strategy would be to pump water from the reservoir, right? What is the tactic? The tactic here, could be a few different things. How about 2 pump trucks, right? And have them start at 0500 and discharge into a holding pond or into the other side of the dam down the river, if that's permissible. And see how each, level supports the one above. Objective, strategy, tactics, always usually developed in that order. Preparedness isn't just about what you do on scene. It's about the plans you've made before anything goes wrong. These include a lot of different things like emergency operation plans, EOPs, SOPs, right? Standards operating procedures, and SOGs, mutual aid agreements, local response protocols, P's and P's, policies and procedures. All of these things go into our preparedness plans and agreements. EOPs, what are EOPs? They exist at all levels, federal, state, and local, but what they do is they outline hazards in the area, what resources might be available, what roles and responsibilities exist within that. And so as a responder, your agency's EOPs help you know what to expect and what's expected of you. They're developed federally, state, locally, to provide this uniform response to all hazards that that community may face. Mutual aid agreements and compacts. These are legal documents that say, if we need help, here's how we'll share people and resources with you. This is how agencies from different areas, different cities, sometimes even different states work together without this red tape slowing things down. They don't have to worry about who do I report to and who do I turn in my time card to and can I have money for gas and are you even paying attention to me? This is how agencies work together. All of these things are written down in contract before an incident happens so that when an incident happens, personnel can just be sent and start working as soon as possible. Mutual aid agreements and compacts are voluntary provisions of resources by agencies or organizations to assist each other. And, with resources, it's not just labor, it's equipment and apparatus and other resources that, cities might have. These things are important. The agreement is a little bit more complex than, you just got to pay our guys, whatever per hour, and then you can have them. There's a lot of other components, wear and tear, and also the contingency planning that your department is going to be short those resources until the incident is finished, and possibly even longer if, who knows, equipment and resources get damaged, during their time over there. And so these agreements need to be in place before that stuff happens. Mutual aid happens between towns and counties, between states, and at the federal level through FEMA and the National Response Framework. You may not sign these personally, but your ability to integrate with mutual aid teams is part of effective ICS, and your department or division or agency, whatever it is, probably has many of these in place already. It's a cool thing that you might see because you might even do training with some of these agencies because you don't see them very much. That stuff's really helpful because you can already know how to integrate into their system with those teams, particularly if you know that we probably won't see that agency on, our basic slip and falls or traffic accidents, but we will see that agency on big fire in the area or a big earthquake in the area, and practicing things like, search and rescue operations with those agencies can be very helpful. Information is derived from plans. Plans contain vital info like risk maps and contact lists and resource inventories and standard protocols. When you arrive at scene, knowing that your agency has a plan and that you've trained on it can give you real clarity under stress. And if you are managing anything, whether it's trying to navigate your ambulance to where it needs to go or managing a major incident, having these plans is one thing. Being familiar with them so you know where to locate resources like where the incident command is, or a phone number for a specific person, or how to get in touch with certain resources is doubly helpful. So don't just have the plans, know the plans. As soon as they become available, take a second. Get as much information on board so you know where to find stuff. So we'll close this section with a question. What plans, procedures, or agreements exist in your agency that you would need to follow during a large incident? If you're not sure, find out. Ask your instructor, ask your supervisor, ask your training officer. Knowing the answer ahead of time can make a big difference. And maybe there's none that, or not many, that apply to your role just yet. But then ask about the future if you want to make captain or you want to, get into law enforcement. What standard operating procedures and plans would apply to you then? So you've now completed the delegation of authority and management by objectives lesson. You should now be able to describe the delegation of authority process, the scope of authority, the management by objectives, and the importance of preparedness plans and agreements. Great job. Thanks for hanging on to this one as well. The next lesson will discuss some functional areas and positions. So, one more discussion question for the comments. In your opinion, what makes a response effective? Think about examples you've seen in training or real life and share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you found the video useful. It costs you nothing. It helps us out big time. We'll see you in the next lesson.